Hi everyone, nixuser here. Today we're going to be taking a look at Fedora 25. So let's take a look at the DistroWatch website, which is a good start for any GNU+Linux distribution information. So distrowatch.org. So a couple of things that you might like to know is that in this version of Fedora, they have included Wayland by default. I'm currently not recording in Wayland. I'm currently recording under X using FFmpeg. The reason for this is that the screen recording, with the way Wayland architecture works, is that screen recording must be done on the compositor side. So there's no standardized way through Wayland protocol itself. Now I'm not saying you can't do recording through Western. Western is a reference implementation of the Wayland protocol, or I should say a Wayland compositor, but there's no standardized way through Wayland itself at this point in time, to the best of my knowledge. If anyone would like to correct me on that, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. But anyway, you can find some information on the Fedora page here on DistroWatch. Also, you've got the start page for here. It was a little while ago that Fedora 25 was released. It was earlier. I think it was actually it might even be late November. Let's just take a look at Fedora Linux on the Wikipedia page, and we can see here, yes, it was in the latter part of November where that was released. So a couple of pieces of information that you might find useful about Fedora. I can take you through some of this and maybe explain some of it. So obviously it's sponsored by Red Hat. The Fedora project is an RPM-based distribution. It used to use Yellow Dog Updater or Yum, or Yellow Dog Updater Modified as its package manager, but this has been superseded by DNF, which is an improved package manager upon Yum, which in turn was an improvement upon whatever they used before Yum. It's been a long time, so I don't really seem to, for some reason, remember. As you can see, a number. It's ABI compatible with a number of CPUs. I, in my setups, tend to use x86-64, and I also use HF, and I think that's HFP here when I use Raspbian, but I haven't tried. I don't believe I have tried Fedora on my Raspberry Pi. At least I don't remember doing so. Part of the reason being, anyway, that you might find that GNOME shell might not always play nice with the Open Max GPU. Or the GPU which is fitted to it, which is OpenMax driver. So yeah, so basically, yeah, you can find a bunch of information from here. You can actually download this via torrent. So why would you use Fedora over, say, for example, Debian? Well, Fedora is really, I don't really like to say it, but Fedora is a bit of a testing ground for what becomes the stable Red Hat distribution. It has a lot of up-to-date applications. You might get paper cuts on those because they haven't been fully tested, but that's not to say that Fedora can't be used as a daily driver. It certainly can be. I wouldn't use it on the server, however, even though they offer a server spin. And speaking of spins, they have a variety of spins. Some focus towards, I think one's called Atomic, one's called the server, and the other one Workstation. There might even be other spins as well, primary spins. Other spins tend to be focused around the desktop, so you can have like some sort of KDE spin, I think, a few other bits and bobs, XFCE. So yeah, you might want to take a look at those other desktops, and some of these desktops are listed here that are supported. Some of the most common ones, obviously GNOME, which I'm currently in at the moment. I'm using GNOME, probably GNOME 3.22 or something like that, I think, but and using GNOME Shell. I haven't looked at the specific version of GNOME. It seems to be stabilizing in terms of features reasonably nicely, although there are a couple of absent ones that I'll mention, the typical ones that you might expect. So as I alluded to before, I tried to record this, and speaking of missing features, yes, I found no reliable way to record through Mata, which is the compositor, which supports the Wayland protocol on GNOME. I found no reliable way of doing it except through using the desktop recorder that's inbuilt to GNOME, which you press, I think it's Control-Alt-Shift-R, and that will give you a recording desktop. Unfortunately, it records at a woeful 15 frames per second. I don't know if you have actually looked at the media info. You can download a utility called Media Info, and perhaps look at the video that I provide you here, and you would see that I record at 60 frames per second because I find it much smoother, and it's in line with the frame rate of my monitor. So anyway, let's move on and take a look at the desktop itself. We might just minimize that. As you can see, it's fully composited, nice 3D compositing there, nice and fast desktop as you would expect. So we have here just the panel. We have the activities, which is going to show you where the applications, you could call it an applications drawer or applications overlay is, otherwise known as the GNOME shell itself. Sorry for that bit of noise there, unexpected. The next is you've got the time here, which will connect in with your notifications. If you've got any notifications under Evolution, which is the mail and calendaring client on GNOME, typically used on GNOME. I believe that was a Novell application many moons ago, but seems to be the default in GNOME based distributions these days. You can add some world clocks there as well, and it tells you the current time, date, etc. Over here you've got a bit of a little what do you call them? I don't know what the right term for it is. Like a little dock, I guess, for the background stuff that's going on in settings. Might be called like a task manager or something like that, like a little taskbar. But yeah, in here you can see that these settings for network, sound, and log off or power, they're all integrated into the one menu here. You can modify your wired connection, which I'm not going to do right now, and you can also log out. Just a point to note too that standby is not the default. It used to be the default. All you have to do is press the Alt key and it'll bring up the standby. I found on my system, however, and you'll notice this on various systems with the Linux kernel, is it doesn't necessarily reliably take your machine to standby, whatever sleep mode that you've set it to. Not entirely sure what the reasoning for this is. Matt Garrett, who used to do some of the power management, would probably be a good source of information as to why. I'd believe him. I think I've heard him say before that it is to do with the buggy BIOS or firmware, maybe EFI, but you'd have to ask him more about that yourselves. So, and actually speaking of that, on my machine, the bugginess that I have is that sometimes the machine, and I'm just looking at it now, it sometimes goes into that standby mode, and without any prompting by myself, no wake on LAN, none of that stuff, it just starts up again from that standby state immediately upon, maybe a second or two after it's gone to standby. So mileage might vary regarding that standby mode. So when we hit the GNOME shell itself, a couple of things that come into mind. You've got some basic favorites along here, although it doesn't label it as favorites. You can add things to it. Some of these here are really not just favorites, but rather applications that I have running in the background. For example, I have this terminal which is hosting the FFmpeg application at the moment, doing the screen grabbing. We have Firefox, and we should probably at this point take the opportunity to look at what version of Firefox we have here. So going into the help here, we can have a look and say about Firefox, and it's a pretty new version of Firefox. The last version I looked at was version 50. I think that was in my previous review. Yeah, we have version 50.0.2 just here, so quite new. Moving right along, I did make mention before, and we can probably just close Firefox for now, although we might return to it a little bit later should we need to. We'll just close those tabs. So we have the Evolution. We have the Evolution mail client, but it's not just a mail client. It also has calendaring, contacts, tasks, and memos built in, which you can just go through using these buttons. I have logged into my nixuser account, and you can see how it presents the email. Basically, you have the ability to sort by various categories there, and it's a fairly simple application to use. It's not very difficult to add a Gmail account. I haven't tried any of the others, such as Yahoo or Live or Outlook or any of those sorts of mail providers. But yeah, it's a fairly simple one. You can go into the calendar. Takes a little while to get there, that's interesting, but yeah, you can see here the sort of standard calendaring app that you would expect. I guess in functionality it's probably not too far from Outlook itself. However, it should be noted that it's not actually integrated properly with the default Office application on Fedora, which is LibreOffice, but we'll come back to that shortly. So we'll just close that now. As you saw just there, a notification came up, so notifications come up there. It used to be, I believe, that when you're in here, you could actually see notifications come down here, but that's changed. So we have Rhythmbox. Now I'm just going to open up Rhythmbox, and hopefully I can play something, although obviously you won't hear it because I don't have the ALSA tied in to this, and I'm not going to be mixing anything with this at the moment. But if we can just perhaps we can add some music, and maybe I can find some files out audio WebM. Let's see if that will play, and it is playing. So yep, that works for at least for the WebM files. Mileage might vary with other formats, and we'll get to that actually now. One thing you need to understand, and the reason why I've got FFmpeg installed on this system, obviously for screen recording, but also for file conversion. Fedora doesn't include patent encumbered codecs. Patent encumbered codecs used to include MP3. However, that's another thing I should add at this point, is that MP3's patent has apparently expired and therefore is included. I believe it's included via GStreamer, so I don't think it's via liblame MP3 or libmp3 lame, whatever it is called, that you could expect to use with FFmpeg. No, it's not supported that way. It's done by GStreamer. They tend to seem to want to support GStreamer as opposed to anything to do with FFmpeg, which is quite strange, actually, speaking of that, because FFmpeg has a full list of enable and disable flags. So if you really wanted to work your way through it, you could disable any of the so-called offending codecs that would be included in a full setup of FFmpeg. Basically, you could reduce it just to a crippled or small version of FFmpeg, and you could use that. But for some strange reason I am not sure at all about, they just don't include it. So yes, GStreamer is the way if you want to play any MP3 files. Noting that no H.264 by default via libx264. Naturally, I've installed that by source code. But for you guys, if you're going to use it, those libraries, you're probably going to want to install them via the package manager. Now, how are you going to do that? There is RPM Fusion. We'll get to that pretty shortly. So moving right along, we'll close this app. We have Shotwell. Now, Shotwell, you're going to be able to view your and manage your photo files. I've got some photos in here. These are some stock photos and some screenshots. you can just double click on that. You saw it took a little while to load, but it's still pretty snappy. So very nice application. Not a real fan of the icons that are sitting here, but hey, free and open source software has never really been about form over function. It's always been about function over form from my perspective. So don't be surprised when you don't see beautified applications. So we'll get out of here and we'll move right on to what used to be Nautilus, now known as Files. I'm sure it still executes via Nautilus. How about we try that just now? Alt F2 to run a command. Nautilus, and has it run Nautilus? It didn't complain, so it just went straight to it. What I might try and do that is do that again, and indeed it brings Nautilus up. And I've got to say the icons are just a little bit nicer in this application. You can see those nice black and white icons just over there, or should I say black and grey, or whatever they are. But you can't, once again, one of my beefs with Nautilus ever since it went from version 2.xx, probably 2.32 to some 2.32 I think of GNOME. Maybe it was 2.31. Which would have been an unstable version. Anyway, one of the things that I have a gripe with is that no F3. I'm going to keep on mentioning this and just keep on, pecking a little bit like a duck, because I really want that F3 button so I can just split pane here, copy paste on the desktop. Now, often I find myself just going to the terminal when I want to copy a bunch of files over, but just a simple, copy one file to here to here might be just easier if you could just go, F3. At the moment, the way I'd have to do it is I might need to, and I don't know if I can even create I can create a new window just like that, and maybe, just maybe I can press the Windows and right, click on this one, press Windows and left, okay, and then I could, for example, grab a video and copy that into the downloads, paste into folder. Fine. So, and it will do it. But that's a little inconvenient. I mean, it used to be very nice just to split pane, and I'm not sure why they got rid of that functionality, to be frank. So, but it is what it is. There is the other locations bit where you can just mount some other volumes if you want them. I'm not going to do it right now, but you can do that. Bit of a hidden thing there. It used to be that you could just find your volumes along the side here, and that, I think that's how it was, and that's indeed how you can do it under Dolphin, under KDE. So I guess there's nothing stopping you really from installing Dolphin if you really want to, but unfortunately it's going to install a whole bunch of KDE libraries and Qt. So, of course, you should probably know that GNOME is actually built with a whole bunch of libraries, one of which is GTK Toolkit. Or the applications at least are built with the GTK Toolkit, GTK3. We have the software here. Now, one of the things I mentioned before was that you have RPM Fusion. Now, in the past, RPM Fusion has been a boon for me, where if I didn't want to install source code or whatever like that, and install, part of the tool chain and all that, so yeah, it was, a convenient way of just finding binaries. RPM Fusion. So now RPM Fusion, you can just go here, take a bit of a look, and they have a whole bunch of supported ones there. Enterprise Linux, you can see, look at this, not supporting 7 of the Enterprise Linux distribution. So yeah, that's a bit of a downer about that, and I'm not sure entirely why they're doing that, but yeah, you can see here even they're supporting Rawhide, so, and pretty much all of the architectures they could ever want. So yeah, if you're going to use Enterprise Linux instead of Fedora, your mileage might vary. So yeah, it's one of these things. There's the free and open source repository, which just includes extra free and open source stuff. And there's the closed source one, from what I understand. So, for example, just to give you a bit of a demarcation there, you wouldn't expect the Catalyst drive or FGLRX to be under the free and open source one, because it's not free and open source, it's proprietary, and that's the AMD driver. Converse to that VLC, which is an open source but patent encumbered. Well, presumably I'm not a lawyer, so therefore I can't really make those sorts of claims, but allegedly, I guess you could say, you would expect it to be under the free and open source. The free and open source repository. So, anyway, if you want more information on that, I probably should do a video on how to install RPM Fusion repository to DNF, and thereby get access to a whole host more software that you would find useful and available on such distributions as Ubuntu, Linux Mint, and Debian. Moving right along. Of course, you've got the terminal there, which I mentioned just before, but that's something up, due to the fact that I'm recording the desktop via the terminal at the moment. You see that beautiful animation there, terminal, Firefox, and you can see the rest and some image viewer. I added decomp editor, not there by default, but I was just going to try and mess with the screen recorder to see if I could get it to coax it into recording at a high frame rate. Had no luck there, despite advice from the web. So let's go into all applications. I'm not going to go through all of these. Some of them you'll have to go through yourself. They're not terribly interesting, some of them. Boxes is a bit of an interesting application, and conversely I've installed Virtual Machine Manager, which doesn't come by default. Boxes is a way of getting access to KVM QEMU and being able to install virtual machines. I don't think I've got any installed. I did have one that I was playing around with. Yes, I still have it. So Ubuntu GNOME 16. Okay, I was having a bit of a play with that. I think it's probably 16.10 I really meant to say. But yeah, it's a bit of a simplified way of managing virtual machines. Virtual Machine Manager, which isn't installed by default, is conversely just a little bit more complex. We'll just bring that up. So it's going to ask me for root access or administrator access. So I'll just go ahead and do that. Right, and then you can see there I've got access to the QEMU KVM object there, and I can just add virtual machines to it, one of which I have here, and we can just run up that. In fact, we'll just get you to play. And I don't think it's going to be a terribly quick virtual machine, but it'll probably do the job. Just give that a moment to load up, and we'll continue on with our overview of Fedora 25. That's the other thing that's beautiful about Fedora, or rather GNOME, is that it has pretty much automatic window management. That's a bit of a bug there. It didn't show the window up there. But you can see that that Ubuntu GNOME is coming up there. So we'll go back to all of the applications, and you can see things just running a little bit slower there. We've got a calendar application. Let's see how that ties in. See, that doesn't even tie into, from the best that I can understand, probably ties into your accounts such as Google if you add them. And of course, when you start GNOME up for the first time, it asks you if you'd like to add some online accounts and that sort of thing, but not at this present point integrated, because I have added my account to Evolution, but no go there. Let's go into here and see if I can log in. Maybe I don't have the right password. Oh, here we go. So we're not going to get 3D out of this thing, but we will get 2D. So it's not too far, not too bad. It's actually fairly quick. So. But yeah, I've got that running at full 1920 by 1080. So if I really wanted to, and I hope this works, if I go view full screen, yep, and I can pretend that I'm in a real machine if I want to. It's kind of going to work. And then I think I have to press that, Control Alt, and then I get out of it. But anyway, we don't really need this anymore, and I'm going to turn the thing off. So I'm not going to force it off. We'll just do a shutdown. And that didn't take very long at all. It's very nice. So Virtual Machine Manager is actually really, really nice. Uses libvirt to do its stuff. Moving right on for the desktop users, you've got Cheese, which is going to be your webcam recorder. You've got Clocks, which is got to do the worldwide time thing. We'll grant access for now. So I wonder if I go and add a world clock. Let's just close that and go add world clocks. Yeah, it just brings up the world clocks application. So fully integrated sort of stuff. You'll see I'm in Perth at the moment and it's 9:31 at night. Going back here. So you've got contacts, which again, given that see, it is going to grab that from the Google account that I have enabled in Evolution, which I didn't actually enable in GNOME itself. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to add my contacts in there because I just simply don't want to show that online at the moment. I don't know what's in there. Documents. I don't have any documents, I don't think, but you never know what you might find. Never know your luck in a big city, as they say. But yeah, documents would show you all your your ODFs and that sort of thing. We've been through Evolution, Files, and Firefox already. LibreOffice Calc. I'm not going to take you all through LibreOffice, but you've got the spreadsheeting application. Pretty decent. You know, I could, if I really want to, red, blue, orange. 1, 2, 3, and I could create I believe a chart, and we'll just go finish, and there you go. So it's got the sort of basic functionality that you would expect, and it has a whole bunch more which I don't know about. In my line of work, at work, I tend to use Excel in a program against Excel using VBA, so I have dabbled a little bit in this, but not so much in that space. But we can save that right now, and we'll put it in our documents, and we'll get saved, just like that one, titled. And if I go back to the documents program, we should see it now, and we can just click on it, and it'll take us there. Look at that, it even views it. Fantastic. Right, so I'm not going to take you through Draw, I'm not going to take you through Impress, but I will go as far as to say that Impress is basically the analog to PowerPoint in Microsoft Office. Writer is the word processor equivalent to Word in Microsoft Office. Maps, we have a OpenStreetMaps. Hoopty. We're going to deny access for the time being because I don't really need you guys knowing exactly where I live. But you can see the whole wide world there, pretty much. So, Brazil. Okay. So yeah, nice little application there. I wonder if it just keeps going. Yeah, it just keeps on going. It's nice and recursive. So anyway, so we've got Rhythmbox. We went through that before. Settings. So you've got a somewhat limited set of settings, but you can go through there and have a bit of a play. Get the details of my system, for example. You can see here, okay system for these days. Not too bad. Running on the open source stuff here for AMD. So yeah. So going back into the applications, I went through Shotwell. You do have the software, this one here, which is a nicer interface, I guess, than DNF for those people who are not really comfortable with the command line. However, I do recommend you learn the command line way of doing things because you can do lovely things like group install entire development development suites and stuff like that. Whereas you don't really, there probably are ways of doing it through here, but it's not my preferred way of doing it. It does look pretty nice though. By the way, worthwhile noting, you can just press the super button to get to the overlay. So next up, what do we got here? So we've gone through software, sundry. You're going to have SE Linux troubleshooter. Basically, if you've got some problems or whatever like that with SE Linux, you can go and have a look in there. What's this? This problem reporter. Yeah, so you can see a few bits and bobs there. Obviously, you'd expect that to slow down as Fedora 25 matures and then goes end of life. I think it goes into life in 13 months from the time of its release. It's never an LTS. You can't expect that. If you want that sort of support, you'll need to go to Enterprise Linux or Enterprise Linux or one of its cousins or clones such as CentOS. But as you saw before, CentOS 7 would not be supported under RPM Fusion, so that might be a deal breaker for you. Got the good old text editor gedit, but I tend to use Vim. You know, it's not a bad text editor, but you know, if you want to do some basic stuff on the desktop, no, it's not responsive. Not all sure why that's the case, but I'll see if I can actually kill the damn thing. So kill all GNOME. Gedit. No. So what we'll do is we'll open up a freshie of one of these by pressing the control button. Yep, and then we'll just go kill 9 gedit. No, okay. Of course, kill all 9 gedit. Be careful with that because you're just killing whatever. And gedit is not running anymore, so that's fine. Moving right along. See how I can close it from there? You can either close it from the window that's actually in or there. Notice how it does the automatic window management for you. But admittedly, it was a little bit dodgy before when it wouldn't show the virtual machine. Got some utilities here, some basic ones. Archive Manager equivalent to tar, pretty much. Calculator equivalent to BC if you use the command line there. What else we got here? Characters. So obviously all your weird and wonderful characters you can expect from the Unicode set. I'm pretty sure we can get the Unicode set there, can we? I don't know. But you can take your pick at the weird ones. So disks, obviously take a preview of your what stuff you've got going on your disks and what's filled up with what. Pretty much a graphical view of what fdisk or parted provides. So with a bit of smart data there, you can actually see that the disk is okay. The last time we had a few bad sectors going on there. Oh well, too bad. But yeah, so nice little application if you want to get a bit of a graphical layout on what's going on with your disks. Disk usage analyzer, so it's a little bit redundant really, I guess, because of the other application, because you actually could see what was being used. But no need. And that's a little slow. That's a little bit disappointing. Let's see if we can just encourage it a little bit. No, not going to coax it. Yeah, it finally went away. Not sure why it's taking so long. And then we can move on to the next application, which is the good old-fashioned document viewer. I don't have any PDFs at the moment, but I can do the typical bash thing that I usually like to do. In fact, we might even just try and run it from Alt F2. So let's do man t bash. Let's pipe that to ps2 pdf that, and then we'll call it bash.pdf. I wonder if that did anything. It'd be kind of interesting if it did. So let's just go find .pdf, and it didn't do it. So I'll just do it now. So we go cd documents, and we go man t bash pipe ps2 pdf then, and then bash.pdf. Yeah, I mean, oh, we don't want to do that. Move bash pdf to bash.pdf. In fact, that's redundant too, by the way. You could just do it like this. I'll show you a nice little trick. Move bash pdf to that. Pdf. I think that's it. Yeah, there you go. And see how I moved it? So that's a bit of a GNUism, by the way, for the bash shell. It doesn't work on normal Bourne shell or any other. Well, it might work on other shells, but mileage might vary again on other shells. So anyway, we can just have a look at this guy, and we'll open him up, and there you go. So lovely, and I don't know, I can press Alt F10 to maximize. Yep. So here we go. Nice PDF formatted man page. So it does what it says on the box. Wonderful. So, and that's considered a utility. Font viewer, I'm not going to go into that. Help, you can have a look at that yourself. Image viewer, kind of redundant, I guess, because we've got the Shotwell over here. But if you wanted to view an image, let's see if we can. I don't even know how to do this. Open. Alright, stock pictures, and we'll just open that. And yep, it's loading nice and quickly. Well, reasonably quickly. As fast as you could expect, I guess. Running out of applications in here, but you've got the logs there, which you've seen before, password, so you can manage keyring, I believe. You can manage a bit of a keyring going on there. And we can take a screenshot, which we will just do right now. We'll just minimize that guy, and we'll take a screenshot. And we'll save that in pictures because we'll need that later, won't we? And the next thing is the system monitor, which is, you know, pretty basic stuff. You can get the same detail from top if you really want to, for the most part. Resources, system files. You can use df to do that if you really want to. Nothing really special there, just avoiding the command line pretty much. And obviously you got the terminal. So we can just go backing out of that by pressing the escape. You got videos, and we can just play that right now. I've installed MPlayer on this system. I don't think I've installed the GUI for MPlayer, but yeah, that works. Again, I could try my other files on here, and I doubt they would actually work. Let's have a bit of a play. I don't know if I've got one for you. I think I do. Let's look for an MP4. So open with videos, and but it's going to complain. Yeah, you see, it's looking for H.264 support. Whereas if we can that, right click, and I don't know. See, that's not all applications. That's a crock. So let's see if we can do something about this. So we go into the command line again. We didn't need another one, but we go with it. And what do we got? CD videos, and we can just go MP player, and it's the only MP4 there. So, and you can see that it's going to work fine. So, yep, unfortunately, using GStreamer, the way it's set up in Fedora 25, you're not going to play your .mp4 if it's got H.264 in it, or for that matter, AAC. But for those purists out there, it won't matter anyway. But yeah, so pretty much coming to the end of it. I've shown you that. You can have a look at the weather if you really want to. Let's grant access. It's saying I live at Belmont Perth Airport, so if you believe I live at an airport, fine. But there's approximate temperature, and you can see bits and bobs. It's in the correct units for my area. That's fine. So anyway, guys, that pretty much closes out this overview of Fedora 25. Some final thoughts, I guess. It's not bad. It's not, it's not awful, but it has its place, and I think it's great for developers. But is it for everyone? Probably not. I use Debian most of the time. There's a great prepackaged distribution. So if you're looking for something that you can get development tools out of the box, you're going to get the latest in free and open source software, then yeah. But you're going to be missing a whole bunch if you don't use RPM Fusion, and that's another video in its own. Installing the RPM Fusion repositories, very doable, very relatively easy. If you want to do it properly, you got to add keys and stuff like that. But it's a usable distribution, but it's not quite complete. It's not as complete as, say, when you go and get a current release of Debian, when the latest Debian's released, it's pretty much got a whole bunch more functionality than what Fedora will have out of the box in terms of media production and stuff like that. So, and a whole host more of supported applications. But nonetheless, those applications age very, very quickly, and that's where Fedora steps in. And as far as non-patent encumbered free and open source software is concerned, it pretty much leads the pack on availability and stability. If you want to try other distributions that have a whole host of applications and a relatively bleeding edge, maybe leading, not bleeding, I guess, you could try Arch Linux out there. You could, to a certain extent, use Gentoo, although they've slowed down in recent years in terms of bleeding edge. So, well, it is a viable option if you're a software dev, but if you're a general desktop user, you're gonna get those paper cuts if you're using proprietary or patent encumbered formats. That said, it does support VP9, VP8, Opus, Vorbis, all of those guys. However, note to self, I don't get hardware acceleration on my relatively recent, that is about 3-year-old hardware, 3-year-old CPU. I don't get accelerated VP9, VP8 support via FFmpeg. Heavens knows why. Could be a VRPU or VDPAU issue, but I have to try and compile all that in. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave that there and not ramble too much longer. If you like this video, please like. Conversely, use the other button. If you'd like to get more of this content, please subscribe. And if you've got anything else to add or some comments, please check the comments section below. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you now. Bye-bye.